Everything going fine.
Excellent.
You hear me?
Yes, I can. And
Okay.
it looks like the recording is working as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
You're getting expert in Twitch now.
Yeah, or at least I know the mistakes I've made in the past and how to avoid those specific ones. So that I can
Okay.
make a brand new batch of mistakes.
New technology, new challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that was 14 days ago, and I even didn't get to do that setup that I promised last time.
Yes, I think probably a good thing to do then is let's just go ahead and walk through the steps. And now that I know what caused the steps to fail, we'll make an adjustment there, and then we'll just see where we end up. I think what I would like to eventually do is just write a completely new set of steps. And I'll show you why I'm thinking that's the case. But yeah, does that sound like a good use of our time today?
Mm-hmm. Because I started it, but my idea was to start it just on Windows, because by using WSL, it's not that complicated, but I've been reading a little bit more on it. And I even installed a separate virtual machine under Linux to try to understand how it works. But it's something that complicates things. While Node and Progress can run under Windows, so it's perhaps not as good as under Linux, but at least for somebody who want to start, it's one additional step of difficulty less.
Yeah.
If we stay on the Windows, and then in a second step we can say, okay, if you want to run it under Linux, just an idea to keep things simple.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, because I admit I've not actually run through those steps on Windows. I've only done that on WSL. So it'd be interesting to see where things fall down. And in fact, it used to be that that a lot of npm packages just did not work under Windows, and I think for the most part that's been addressed. I think it had something to do with the Python dependencies, but I also know that that Jinaga doesn't depend on any npm packages, and it brings in very few. Well, I guess yeah, it's got a pure dependency on Postgres if you're using the Postgres binding. So yeah, it'll be good to give that a shot. Okay, so I think what I will
because actually I managed to get Jinaga installed with Node and Progress, Postgres on Windows. There was only one message secure. Let's see whether I still have it immediately here on a virtual machine. There was one security message, and that was for which one? For the package Node for Forge. It's a dependency of Jinaga.
Yeah.
And in Jinaga, you ask for version 0.9.0, and apparently a security problem has been solved from 0.10 onwards.
Okay.
But beside that, no problems, no real trouble.
Okay.
But
so
I only got that far.
I didn't update the dependencies. That should fix that.
Yeah. I didn't really run the whole thing. I just installed it, and so far that was okay. But there I ran out of time, so the usual stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's so many different things that I'm working at. I would yeah, just really love to devote all my time to getting Jinaga.net up off the ground and yeah, fixing fixing the things that I now know are wrong in Jinaga, and it still bugs me that Yeah, I wrote an algorithm and a proof of the algorithm and said these are the limitations, but then in the Jinaga version of it is like, nah, bugs all over the place. It's like,
Yeah,
some.
in the ideal world, we could the whole day work on Jinaga.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Unfortunately, luckily, there are still some customers who call from time to time
Yeah.
because they keep us alive and pay for things. So yeah,
That is true. Yeah, all right.
and if
So
but
I think what I will do is if I switch to a screen share here, I've now discovered that you can actually do a proper full screen share in Discord. Yeah, so we've got our Inception going on there. Okay, so now I can actually have multiple windows within this screen share here. And that also means that...
So it's sharing the full screen, the monitor, in fact.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
And by doing a quick transition in... Yeah, so now everybody else should be seeing that too. Okay, so if we go to the documentation, and so we've got creating an application. So these are the steps that we're producing. The thing that broke these steps is that when we get here to Jinaga client, so the best way is to use Webpack to bundle your application, and that is still true. I just simply say, just run Webpack. And the problem is that in October, Webpack 5 was released, and it has different defaults. It no longer... And so I when I wrote these instructions, I deliberately tried to just stick with the defaults of Webpack and not do anything crazy. But now it's got different defaults. It's got a different opinion. So it doesn't work at that point anymore. But if we use Webpack 4, the latest version of Webpack 4, excuse me, then everything works just fine. So let's just go ahead and get back here and pull up PowerShell so that we can run through this on Windows.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little bit easier to read. So we are in Windows now, so Windows / projects. And I will do a Jinaga on Windows. Okay. So we're in that thing. We do our npm init. Okay. So Jinaga on Windows. Sure thing. And take all of the defaults except I always use MIT. Okay. That looks like an excellent package JSON. And so now we need to install these with the... Okay, this does not yet bring in Webpack. So we're still good with those.
Actually, you don't need a save anymore. Save is a default now.
Yeah, that's true. So can't do the...
No, the backslash is not working in Windows.
No. ES6 promise. Get those going, and then we need express session. And of course Jinaga and JSON Web Token. Passport and Postgres.
PG.
Okay. So, yeah, there's our vulnerabilities.
You get 2. Why 2?
So this is talking about Node Forge.
But why 2 then?
Yeah, but actually if we do an npm audit fix, this should actually just patch up our lock file so that it says, I know Jinaga wants that version. Oh, okay, it's not able to do that update.
No, because it's a fixed version that you ask for in Jinaga.
Okay. Okay, yeah, definitely need to fix that then. Okay. So now we've got our development package. There, that's where Webpack comes in. So npm install. Now we do the save dev, or I think the shortcut is -G and $D. But Webpack. Now if we do @4, then it'll get the latest on that line, and Webpack CLI version 4. So this should get us just what we can use. Okay, and let me bring up Visual Studio Code here so we can see what we just wrought. And so now we've got Webpack 442 or 444.2. So that's all good. Let's go ahead.
Actually, which version of Node are you using now?
Let's see. 12.18. Yeah, I'm currently working on an Angular project, and I think we probably updated Node on that project. And so yeah, now I'm on the Windows side, so I'm using that version.
Okay.
But yeah, when I originally wrote these, I was on 10, and that was working just fine.
So if you type Node-V, yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right, now we're protected by Git. Okay. So next on our list, we're doing our Express. So yeah, this was one of the things that I did to kind of try to simplify these instructions. Like I was saying, I wanted to use the default Webpack behaviors. So so all of the server-side stuff is just regular Node, not packaged, and then all the client-side stuff Webpack uses. I think last time when we were trying to diagnose what went wrong on your machine, I was trying to bring in the packaging of the server side, and so tried to make Webpack produce 2 packages, and that's what the startup kit does. Is it Webpacks the server and Webpacks the client. But yeah, the walkthrough just uses Webpack for the client. So, and in fact, yeah, the walkthrough is just using JavaScript for the server, not even using TypeScript.
But actually, why do you use Webpack for the server?
Yeah, there is some debate on whether you need to do that, and I kind of fell down on the side of doing that so that I can have a smaller deployment. I can have the same tool chain consistently client side and server side, and I knew that bringing in the Jinaga dependency Jinaga actually contains the package contains two assemblies or two two
Jinaga browser and Jinaga client.
Yeah, so two bundles, and so one of them doesn't have any of the client side stuff, and the other one doesn't have any of the server side stuff, but they have a lot in common. So I wanted to go ahead and bundle those together in the application. Not strictly required though, as you can see here, we're doing the server without the Webpack toolchain. So we get ourselves an index.js, and so this I just put right here at the root. So, and then this is also just using regular require and not using the the new JavaScript module syntax for import. And okay. So it might be possible now to go ahead and change those to imports. So I'm not really sure if that's going to make much of a difference. But yeah, so now we can just node index, just run that thing. And hey, we are running at localhost 8080. So yeah, I should be able to browse to that. And then it should say I can't get. Well, there's the page that's cached up there, and that's because of
perhaps just refresh a few times.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the nuclear option here, and
okay.
So this is a previously installed progressive web app running at that address. So clear site data. Not just clears the cache, but also uninstalls that PWA and deletes its IndexedDB. So, yeah, now we're back to cannot get. Awesome. Okay, so now we add the routes. So, so in other walkthroughs of Express, I've noticed that they're just kind of doing the routes right there inside of the index.js, and I wanted to try to keep things a little
separately.
bit cleaner. Yeah. Even though, as it turns out, once you start working on the app, you're mostly working on the client side anyway, and your routes stay pretty fixed. But that means now we can serve up index.html. Well, let's actually okay, we actually have to call that new thing right here. So this is after we've set up our app. Then we do that at the top. We bring in the configure routes, and then we call it just before we call listen. So actually it's right there.
Yeah.
Not right there. Okay, so now it should try to load that page, and if we do this, then it should find one. And we want this to be at index.html, so right there at the top. Welcome to Zombocom. And so, boom, there's welcome. Okay, so very simple Express server, and so far all working just fine on Windows. So we are, let's see. Okay, that's. I was looking at that symbol and trying to think if that meant that I was in WSL, but no, yeah, it says C Project Windows, so that's it's running in PowerShell. And in fact, yeah, there I can see definitely PowerShell. Okay. All right, so now let's actually bring some Jinaga in. The main event. So, and this was something that I noticed that you did dist main.js instead of source main.js. And So I think that was one of the places where you went off the rails. It builds into dist, and you pull from the dist folder within Jinaga in order to get the client-side one. So that's I think part of what happened there. But if we do src and then create index, we call this main.js, right? Still in the JavaScript role. Yeah. Not forcing you down TypeScript with this walkthrough. Then grabbing Jinaga, dist Jinaga. So Jinaga browser, create an instance of Jinaga for the browser and initialize it with absolutely nothing, so it's not even making a connection to the server. It's just
just local.
Yep. No IndexedDB, nothing. Just running out of memory. You got your first template function, and then doing some jQuery stuff in order to first of all create that fact, then run a Jinaga query, and this still makes me smile a little bit to see j.query, even though I know this isn't jQuery, but this part, actually this part right here is just regular DOM manipulation. It's not actually even using jQuery. That's right. We didn't install it as a dependency. But yeah, it's like that might confuse some people to see j.query because it's not jQuery, but it still makes me happy for some strange reason. So the import comes from there. That's the client side one, because the server side is just Jinaga. And now we webpack it. And so do an npx webpack that just runs the version of webpack that's installed in package.json. So it's going to run that version. So npx webpack is just going to run that, and it says it can't find source. I can't find an entry point in source. I wonder if this is one of those things that changed before, because it might be looking for index now, so that might be something that needs to change. Index.js. Try that again. Yeah. Interesting. So then it says the entry point is main.js. So if you look in dist, it created main.js, but the source was index.js. That's a weird change. So yeah, that used to be the right thing to do. I guess it changed somewhere inside of Webpack 4. Or maybe I even wrote these instructions with Webpack 3. Maybe it was a change between 3 and 4. Huh. Okay.
So by default, it looks now for index.js Webpack.
Yes. Yes, so that is something we will definitely want to change. So, in fact, while I'm here, let me open up a new code window for Jinaga underscore I don't have it on. That's right, I do all that in WSL. So let me just create a new window, and then I can, where is, okay, well I was going to try to keep track of the things that we're fixing by updating these as we go. I'll just have to go back and rewatch the video.
But can you not just open a second window which connects to WSL?
I can. So let me start with a good old Ubuntu here. And so in Ubuntu, if I go to Yeah, it's in the projects folder here. Yeah, so I didn't do a Jinaga.com on this machine. Okay, so I must have just been doing all of my Jinaga.com development on the Mac. So that's on a different machine.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll worry about that later. Okay. Back to the instructions. So if we change that to index.js, then we're good. So that creates dist main.js, and it does. And now we need to serve it up. So add this scripts main.js so that it loads dist main.js. And we add that to the routes. There's the routes. Oops. Inside the function, please. There we go. So now when you try to get scripts main.js, then it'll load dist main.js, which is the one that we just compiled. And so if we add that to the index, we actually want to do this down here. Okay, then that should load the script.
But why is it the scripts directory?
Yeah, so it's the scripts path in the URL, but then here this is telling Express whenever you see that path, go ahead and load
go to dist. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's just the URL. They don't need to see how we've organized our file system. So with that, I should be able to do node index, get that started again, and then here, when I take a look at the elements, yep, now I can see what's on the page, refresh, and now I've got my index, my script running, and it even did the thing and showed me that I'm visitor number 1. So it's definitely loading the script. And in fact, if we take a look at sources, we can see there's main.js, and that's the packed version of it. By default, Webpack doesn't do the source map. You have to configure it to do source map, and then you'll get the original source code here. But at the very least, you can pretty print it. But yeah, that's all the generated stuff that wraps.
It's still readable.
Yeah, most of this stuff here is just the state machine to run an async function and do. Well, actually, wait a minute. No, this is the Webpack version of Jinaga itself. Like this right here, this all comes from NodeForge. So this is the crypto stuff.
Okay.
That is computing a. Yeah, that's being able to write a public key out to a string, which is one of the features that I use from SourceForge. But yeah, so it all gets bundled, packed, and set there, so that you can do this. Woo! And then now you refresh. Let me get rid of that. So now we can refresh. Oh, and I'm still
Stays on
number 1. Why do? Oh, yes, and that's because, in fact, I think I even addressed that here. You should see a message, and you might be surprised the account remains the same. Yes, I was surprised. The client doesn't tell the server about the facts, and so when you refresh, it forgets all of its facts. So now let's inform the server. So in order to inform the server, we need to serve up an endpoint at /Jinaga. And that endpoint needs to be the handler that we are running at the server. So we do this. This is our initialization inside of Jinaga.js that we write here. on the server side. So all the server side stuff in this walkthrough is just at the root, and then the client side stuff is inside the source, which is a little bit confusing. But the way that I set up the starter kits and the way that I do all my apps is that under source you've got server and client as well as shared. And yeah, that's another reason for doing the Webpack of both, is that that's able to package shared into both of them, and you can set up your aliases such that it's able to address when you import from shared. It knows where to find that folder, no matter which way you're going. So we set up our Jinaga.js configuration there. So that is going to call Jinaga server, and remember we are on the server side. So we create an instance of Jinaga running on the server. Again, empty configuration, so it's not connecting to any database or any backplane or anything. And it gives us back a handler. And then we just use that handler at a particular URL. That way Express, whenever you route to /Jinaga, it'll call that Jinaga handler. So we then should be able to configure Jinaga inside of our routes. Or actually, I probably don't do it inside of the routes, do I? I probably do that inside of index.js. Yep. Even though it does set up a route. The point is that it configures Jinaga. So we import that, and then we call that here, configure Jinaga for this app, which is what they just said to type there. And now we've got the endpoint, so we configured the client to use that endpoint. So we go back to index.js on the client, and then right here we'll recreate, and that's where we say, oh, it's not picking up the types. That's fine. We say that. Yep, so now our endpoint is /Jinaga. And so with those changes, we do have to restart the server because we changed the server-side code. And now, and we do have to re-webpack it. Yeah, I've gotten spoiled to the whole running Webpack in watch mode, and it just restarts everything. So npx webpack and node index. And now we should be sending those facts back to the client or back to the server, and then downloading them from the client every time we hit the page. So now our count goes up.
Yeah.
So what is happening here is we can see there is a query. Well, actually, the save happens first. That's interesting. But yeah, first we're saving a fact. So we're saying, hey, I've got a really tiny graph of facts, just 2 facts in there. One of them is the domain, my application, and then the other one is the visit. So that means somebody visited my application, and the fields of the visit include the time of their visit. And so that way every visit is distinct. It's different from other visits because they're at different times. If it didn't have the time in there, then there could only be one visit, and it would still stick at visitor number 1.
Okay.
So we save that, and then query. So that's asking the server. So starting at my application. So this is really just the hash of the my application fact that we saw in that little graph there. Starting at that fact, give me all the successor domains with the type of my application.visit. So it just runs that little query on the server. So yeah, when we talk about queries versus pipelines, that's one of the things that I need to upgrade in Jinaga so that it can actually send a pipeline to the server and not just individual queries. But that is on the backlog. So it responds with, here are all the results. I've got all of these individual visits that happened. And so here's a visit with this hash, here's a visit with that hash. And as the client, I get to now decide, do I already know about this thing? Or is this brand new information to me? So I call load, and notice here, we're giving back 0 through 4, so we're giving back 5 results. But the client already knows about a couple of things. It knows about the domain, and it knows about the one visit that it just created. So the query response gives you back the hashes of all the visits that satisfied that query. The client says, I already know about one of them. Please give me the information about the other 4. So you'll see here are the 4 hashes that I don't know about. And then what comes back are the visit facts. So a little bit under the covers what's happening there.
Okay.
So yeah, you can see the different dates of those various visits. So yeah, the important part of that though is the server is not telling you your visitor count, your visitor number. You're computing all that on the client side, which really bad for a visit counter, but good for the kind of applications that we're actually going to be writing with this thing. And so, refresh the page, the count will go up. The browser has shared the fact with the server, and now it remembers the visits. But once you shut it down, then the server is going to forget all of those facts. So we shut it down, we start it back up again, and
You restart at 1.
Back at 1. Yep. So how do we solve that? We solve that with
saving the facts in Postgres.
Yep. So this is the part that, well, I usually do this under WSL, so this probably, yeah, we
might go wrong on the Windows.
Well, I was thinking through, some of these are one-time steps. Once you've set up Postgres, it'll work for any application that you want to use. But I don't think that I've set up Postgres on Windows, so we do get to go through these steps. So, first of all, do I even have Postgres installed? I don't see that I do. So, if I were to go to my shell here and do psql, it's going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah. Let's get
first have to install.
Yeah. Do I have instructions here about how to install Postgres?
Well, in the getting started on top, it says prerequisites. You have to install Postgres.
Yeah. Okay.
If you just go to their website, you can download it.
Okay.
I think it's 200 megabyte or so.
Mm-hmm. A lot of clicks to get it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
That's interesting. Yeah, okay.
The difference is that the latest versions, they are not delivered by that installer anymore for Linux. But it's still available on Linux. Just buy the package.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm on this machine I use Chocolatey for a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't want to include Chocolatey instructions because then it's like, oh, okay, now here's instructions on how to install Chocolatey. Now that you've got that, use this. But that's probably the way that I would normally have gone about this.
Yeah, but I think it's better not to get Chocolatey involved, because that's another magic thing. To keep things simple, it's better to have just the individual steps, I think.
Yeah. Yep, I think so too. So that is definitely going to take a little bit of time. Oh, wait a minute. That just jumped. Okay. Might actually be done in about another minute. Okay. So as we've got that downloading, we are starting up a Postgres command line so that we can create our database and create our user. So this is a user in the data in the instance of the server itself. This isn't a user in that particular database. So you can create a new database for each of your applications, and this is a common user. And now you can, as part of these setup instructions, this setup script will give that user access to that database. So you get some fine control there. For a developer machine, I always just have this one dev user, and then I give it access to all of my application databases. But for production, I come up with a specific production user with a good password, not devpw, and each one has independent access. Okay, so yeah, looks like we've got our executable. So the nice thing about this executable is that it will install not just the server, but also all of the workbench tools. So if you're so inclined, you can take a look at the directory or the table structure. So there's our command line tools, which we need to follow the instructions. And then pgadmin 4 is your workbench. So we need to come up with a password there. I'm just going to slide that off the screen. Not that I don't trust the asterisks to show up, but so.
Yeah, you don't want to have that on Twitch.
Yeah, don't even want people to know how long my password is. Okay, and then we're starting at 5433. And just take all the defaults.
Funny, in my when I set it up, it was 5432.
Oh, I wonder if...
Huh?
You know what? I bet you I have Postgres running in WSL, and that's consuming 5432 on this machine. Because yeah, WSL is not a VM, so it shares the same address space.
Does it have the same IP address, or is there some network address translation in between it?
No network address translation. So same IP address. It's just another process running on the machine. So yeah, I do have a Postgres process running right now at 5432. So that means that in these instructions, I'm going to have to remember to, actually, yeah, since that is the case, I will be able to connect to the Postgres instance that's running at 5432, and it'll already have the database set up and everything. But nevertheless, I'll walk through these with the new server that I set up on 5433. Yeah, I couldn't get past this first one because I didn't have the psql command line in PowerShell. But if I switched to WSL, I'd be running psql in WSL. So much stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah, but that Progress process running already must be running on the Linux then, and the Ubuntu.
Yes, that is correct. So yeah, since it's not a VM and it's really just a translation layer, and so it's running the microkernel, but still within Windows. So yeah, that's a process running on top of a translation layer to a different microkernel, but still serving up a port that's in this particular address space. Yeah.
It's some magic to make it easy, but not to make it very understandable.
Yeah, that is true. I remember
why-
when WSL first came out, I was like, "What is this magic? This is how did you make this work?" And then it's like, well, we didn't make everything work, and yeah, that's when I first tried running Node on Windows, and most things worked, but there were a few things that I was using Jekyll at the time. Jekyll relied upon a POSIX feature that was not yet ported into WSL, and so Jekyll broke. But eventually they fixed it, and then WSL2 is an even better translation layer. So it's pretty much going to work in WSL2. So almost there. Starting the server. So what we're going to need to do is there's a -H for the host name. I think it's -P for the port number, so we'll have to specify port number as well as we run these commands here and here. And that way we can use 5433. Okay.
Yeah, but if you run that from the normal PowerShell or the command line, is there any way you can confuse the two?
Yeah, so this is so this pSQL right here, and in fact I should have pSQL now before I tell it not to run Stack Builder. Let me just make sure that that's the case. So pSQL. Let's kill that and start another one. Nope. Okay, so maybe I do need that in order to get the pSQL command, just to be sure.
Let's see what it does on my side. Oh no.
Yeah.
I installed pSQL, but I also cannot... you need to select the 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next.
And so now it's
And
going to
there
do
you
some
have-
drivers. Yeah, okay, so I think... Oh. I thought that said everything.
If you just click on the pluses, then you can see what's below it.
Okay, gotcha. So... yeah, that one's already installed. pSQL ODBC. And the server's already installed. You know, I'm thinking that the command line tool should already have been there. But, yeah, well, let's just make sure and get these ODBC drivers. But, yeah, I don't think that those are pSQL command line. ED agents. Yeah, I don't think that's it either. But job scheduling, yeah. Okay. So I'm not certain why we're not getting the pSQL command, but it might be one of those. It doesn't make sense that it would require a reboot.
Okay, I'm back. I jumped out again.
Oh.
Don't know why.
Okay, I was just checking some boxes that I didn't think needed to be checked, but
So you just installed the additional drivers, that was all, huh?
yeah, so I checked the JDBC boxes, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's getting those installed, but I don't think that pSQL needs those, or is included.
Yeah, I didn't check them on my virtual machine, and indeed, if I try PSQL, it gives me the same error as you get.
Okay, so that is worth, and for some reason Snack Builder is locked up, but that is worth doing a little bit of research. So PSQL on PowerShell. How do we do that? That's probably a good one to start with. Hey, chocolatey. Go do that. And install Postgres. So yeah, good with that. And then set the environment variables. Okay. So this might be adding
We need that
to the path. Okay. That's probably all it takes. So okay.
Michael,
Yeah, so one of the things that that happens there is that it tries to reboot your machine. Okay, so I just interrupted the reboot, which I think preserved the stream. I think we're still streaming and recording.
No, the stream is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, the Twitch stream.
Yeah.
So yeah, it shut down the browser and all that stuff. So let me just confirm here. We are still live on Twitch, and everything everything should still be good there. So bringing that back. Okay. So there's our Postgres setup. Okay.
Stream.
Okay. All right. So the thing that that we were trying to do before we got interrupted was we were trying to run PSQL, and in order to run that on Windows, we needed to add some environment variables. So if I go to, I'm going to open up program files, PostgreSQL. So there we've got 13, and there's bin, and so PSQL is in there. So as long as we add that to our path, we should be good. So here's the path for the user. I think will be fine. Yeah, I think I'd prefer to edit the user path to do this. Add Postgres 13. And so now if I start up a brand new Postgres process from here, or a brand new PowerShell process from there, then it should pick it all up. So there's a brand new PowerShell. And so if we do PSQL, hey, you need the password. Well, I'm not going to give it to you. Haha. All right. Okay, so now we want to connect to localhost Postgres. And so this is the name of the user and the name of the database, or I got those backwards, but either way, it's pSQL. The host is localhost, and now the port number is 5433 in my case. And then we're connecting to, I think, as the Postgres user to the Postgres database. Yep. And so now it wants the password for Postgres, and that's the one that I just set up during the installation. Okay, so here I am in Postgres, and I can create a brand new database, and I'm going to call that database my application, just like it says in there. Database created. And then, since this is the first time that I'm doing anything in this particular server, I can create the user. So now I have a user called dev with that password devpw, and it has access to absolutely nothing at this point. It cannot create databases, it cannot create other roles. I think this is what that was saying right there. And so now we want to, so we've created the database, we've created the user, we want to create all the tables within the database and then give that user permission to use that database. And it will only be able to select and insert. No update, no delete, no admin stuff.
So it's the immutable user.
Indeed. So we're going to have to do this with the addition of the port number. So we'll start with that part, host, localhost, port 5433, and then the rest is we are running the script that's inside of node modules Jinaga setup SQL. And so we're doing this from the root of our folder here after we've already done an npm install. So we've got our node modules there. So that means it should be able to find the script.
And that will create all the tables.
Yes. So in fact, I can control click on that, and you can see here's what the setup does. Is and a little reminder, this is what you should do before you run this script. But it is going to create the edge table.
Yeah.
And then it's going to create the fact table. And also notice this grant select insert to dev. So when running this in production, you just go through here and you change your setup script to use the appropriate username. So it creates fact, and then it creates user, and that's basically our key store. So that's storing our public and private key pairs. And then signature, so that every fact that's entered into this database is signed by the user that created it. That's why we need their private key in the key store. And that's it. So it's a very, very small database. It's really just edges and facts. It's not much happening there. So now we run that script for the user Postgres in the application, my application, or in the database, my application. And here's the password for Postgres, not for the application user, because the application user can't run DDL. Only the Postgres user can. And now we've got that user and these tables all set up. Which means at this point, we can configure our application to use it.
Just have to change the port number there.
Yep. So that all goes, let's just clear that out so we can see what we're doing here. This is inside of our Jinaga.js. So we're configuring Jinaga. And so we have to set up our, let's see, Jinaga config JS. That might be an error there. It's at one point in the past I had called it Jinaga config, so that's another thing to fix. But it should be in the Jinaga stuff. So right here is where we're doing the creation of the Jinaga server. So that's the Jinaga server create. So it's really right here. So that's how we want to create our Jinaga server, not this empty create. So that replaces that. So now we are pulling the connection string from the environment variable, so that way you can configure it with the appropriate credentials on the production server. But by default, I'll just use that one with 5433, and that's the database name. So now this calls create, giving that connection string to both the store, which stores the facts, and the key store. So if you want to, you can separate the user table, which is the key store, from the other tables. There's no foreign key relationships between them, and so now your key store can be kept separate from the application store. And in future editions of Jinaga, as we continue to develop this out, you'll be able to deploy the key store in one place, and then Jinaga servers in lots of places, and then it'll just use the key store in as secure a way as it possibly can in order to say, all right, just sign this fact and then give it back to me, kind of thing. All right, so that should set up the storage.
Because actually the key store will just be on a single server.
Yeah, that's the idea, or at least the key store is far less distributed than the Jinaga store. What I kind of envision is that the client, ideally, a private key should never leave your machine, so you should be able to just generate a key pair on this one little machine, and then now this represents my identity. The problem with that is if that little machine is your mobile device and you lose it, you've lost your private key, and you can't log in using that identity from a different device. So it's like, okay, push that trust of your identity just a little bit further away from your device, but not too far. So so kind of harkening back to the OpenID days, if you remember the idea there, before we had all of this social login stuff. It's like, okay, you get to choose who is going to manage your identity, and as long as they speak OpenID, then anybody can interact with them. So you log into that server, and then you can participate. So it would be kind of like I get to choose where my key store is. So my key store I'm going to host in the cloud under my own credentials, and then now I can participate with other people by sharing facts. But I never share my private key beyond that key store. So that's kind of the topology that we're working toward.
The purpose is, in fact, just to have a good backup of that key.
Yeah. So it should be in a place that you can access it from several different clients, but not too far away that it's now outside of your bubble of trust. So little compromise dance that you have to do there, between the security and the convenience. So now at this point, no client-side changes, so we don't need to do a webpack. We should be able to do node index, and now it runs this version that connects to Postgres. So
now we should be able to have 2 clients running.
Yep.
And even stop the server, and they should remember.
Exactly. So yeah, we've got this, and just as you said, if we've got another tab, so another client is running, well, then it's consistent with that one. So now you're number 5, and then, okay, you're number 6. Which you would get just if the server was keeping it in memory. But now, if the server goes down, comes back up, then it still remembers. So it's got all the facts. So yeah, the whole idea of all of this walkthrough stuff is that you should be able to make little tiny infrastructure decisions about how are you going to store your facts, how are you going to communicate, and then just express the output of those decisions, and not have to create a database schema for your application. So no application specific knowledge in the infrastructure. It's just, these are just little infrastructure decisions. And all of your application specific stuff ends up in here.
Yeah. And it even all runs under Windows now.
Yep, that was all under Windows, so that worked just fine. Yeah, and just don't try to install Postgres while you're on the stream, and everything will be good.
Good.
Okay. So
the only thing to watch out for is for the Webpack, that we stay on version 4, and otherwise we have to change some defaults.
Yes, we had to change that name. So I'll post this video, but then I'll also go back through the video and edit the instructions to match the changes that we had to make here. And then you should be able to go through it from there, and then get started on and building your first Jinaga application just in JavaScript, with no complicated Webpack configuration at all. There's no custom Webpack config in the folder.
Okay. That's great. All the problems solved.
Yeah.
So next week there is no session, if I saw well on the website.
So next week we should be getting back to our pseudo regular schedule. Okay, there we go. Now I can look at you and stop the stream there. Okay, good. So next week, getting back to the regular schedule, but we've got Christmas and New Year's coming up in there as well. So let's go ahead and meet next week and the week after, and then take a couple of weeks off for the holidays.
Okay, so next week there is a meeting anyway.
Yeah, I did add it to the Google.
Let me check.
Calendar.
Let me check the website, because if you go to immutable architecture, okay. No, it's from 2 to 16 December. It's not 2 and 16. Okay.
Okay, right.
No, I thought it was 2 and 16, but it's from 2 to 16. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Then good that I asked, because I didn't go to the Google Calendar, and I thought, okay, there is it's 14 days, but okay.
Yeah. That's one of the projects that we should definitely work on is an application that just keeps track of when we're meeting, what the topics are, post it to the website, post it to Google Calendar. That's that's what a decision substrate should be. Is it just captures your decisions, and then you've got little applications that are taking those decisions and then publishing them out to different APIs.
To different places. Yeah. Perhaps it wouldn't be bad to send I guess you have the mail address of Luke and of Jeff.
I don't have an email address for Luke. I just can ping him through Discord.
Okay, because they were always there, and at once he disappeared, so we might not have seen the the schedule.
Yeah. I was a bit lazy and didn't update it until just recently. I think I did that on Monday, so yeah, my fault there.
No.
But hey, we got accomplished what we wanted to today, so that's
That's great. Okay, then I can try to go further in the development, find some time, and then we will see each other next week.
Indeed, sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. I appreciate your time.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Take care.